Now next up, a special treat. Now for those of you who were here last year, we had this super panel. We had AOL, we had Microsoft, we had Yahoo talking about their partnership. And Joanna O'Connell came up for the Q&A and gave them a very hard time. And so I promised our friends at the portals that I would bring her up here this year so that you could grill her and ask her some hard questions. So we'll have a little Q&A after she comes out. Come on, Joanna. She said to introduce her as my pal. We'll see how she does. She's the principal analyst at Forrester. And here she is, Joanna. Hi. The Apostrophe Club.
Hi, guys. Whoa, those are some bright lights. I think I'm supposed to stay in this box. Can everyone see me? OK. So I just swam in from Brooklyn. Boy, are my arms tired. Ching. Anyone? Anyone? No, really, my commute was a holy nightmare. It took me a long time to get here. Not super fun. I'm excited to be here, honestly. What I'm not as excited about is the fact that I actually have to have notes, which is unusual for me. If anyone's seen me speak before, not that you have had to see me speak before, I really like having like a picture of like a bear or a martini glass on the slide, and then just using my hands a lot, you know. But I actually have to use my notes today, unfortunately, because I'm going to talk about numbers. And if I talk about a number incorrectly and you tweet it, I'm super screwed. So I have some notes. So I'm actually going to talk about Forrester's most recent digital media buying forecast. We are Forrester. We make leaders successful every day. OK. I also stayed up really late, I have to admit. Because of the election, I was really nervous and excited. So I also have to use my notes because, frankly, I was distracted last night instead of studying my presentation. OK, so, all right. So, you know, we're Forrester. We like numbers. So I thought I would focus on some interesting and useful numbers for you guys today. First is just around expected compound annual growth for a whole bunch of different channels. You're probably going, OK, well, what are they? I don't know what this means. Here's the good news for us in this room. The big numbers are for online display and search. Really, really healthy expected growth in the coming years. So yay for us. TV, not so bad. Direct mail, yeah, you know. Yikes. I wouldn't want to be in one of those businesses exclusively. That would be a little scary. Although, to put this in perspective, 2012 spend for display is around, I'm looking at my notes. Here it is, $12.7 billion. That includes video. Whereas with television, for cable and broadcast, that's around 76 or 77 billion. So they're still way ahead of us. But if you look at where the growth is, obviously, we're in the right business in this room. By the way, I used to have those in green and red to really highlight the point, but they changed it. Can you see? Are those in green and red? Right? So that's very scary for those of you that are in the radio business. OK. So here's the more interesting stuff for you guys. This is our display ad forecast. It came out not too long ago, maybe a month or two ago we published this. We update this every year. So this one looks at display spend for 2010 to 2017. So obviously with 2010 and 2011, those are real numbers. 2012 through 2017 are forecasted numbers. So what do you need to know when you look at this chart? I think the first thing that's important to know is the overall number that we expect that we're going to get to by 2017. And that number is 28 billion up there in the upper right. That's a decent number. Now, that includes a few things. That's not just banner ads. That does actually include text ads. It includes static images, although who the heck does those anymore? Obviously, by 2017, nobody. That includes rich media, which is basically everything that's not static. That's a banner. And then video. So what do I really want you to pay attention to with these numbers? The first is kind of where we're at with banner advertising right now. I can't believe I just called it banner advertising. Sorry, guys. Display advertising right now, around 5 billion. Getting up to around, whoopsie, 2016, 9.8 billion, and 11 billion by 2017. That's around 16% compound annual growth. That's quite healthy relative to some of these other areas. But the big one here is video, right? Video is around 2.9 billion now, and it's going to get up to around 7.7 in 2016 and around 9.2 in 2017. 26% annual compound annual growth. That's big, right? That's about 20% of the display market now, which is video, and around 33% of the display market in 2017, which is video. Yay for us, because that's where all the brand dollars are, right? Incidentally, the overall compound annual growth rate for display is around 17% now. That's actually a slight reduction from where we've had it in the past. We're starting to see a maturation. We're also thinking about the fact that with social, there's a funneling of activity towards social that is not captured in this particular forecast. Social is elsewhere. What else did I want to tell you guys? Oh, average CPMs. Good news, they're going up. Yay. So I think all of the fears to the contrary. We're looking at CPMs overall going from 266 in 2012, which is, I know it's low, but this is overall for display, to 468 in 2017. So that's good news. Now, I think the stuff that you guys probably care more about, and again, I'm using my dorky notes, 266, 468. Sorry, guys. OK. So exchange-traded spending, we're expecting that that's going to account for about a third of US display ad spend by 2017. So first of all, what do I mean? And here's the chart, by the way. What do I mean by exchange-traded spending? It's a sort of hotly contested topic. In the case of this particular forecast, we're basically talking about exchanges and RTB. Essentially, all the exchanges are RTB now, although when we started this process a few years ago, frankly, they weren't. So we call it exchange-traded display. So it's all the major exchanges. It's all the other major supply sources in the RTB ecosystem. And we get at this by talking to people that are doing the selling and talking to people that are doing the buying, and essentially triangulate that way. So some stuff to pay attention to here. First, the overall number. We're putting the exchange-traded ecosystem at around 8.3 billion in the US by 2017. And I think that was around what Brian had, right? Lower than IDC, but around what Brian had. Personally, I think that's a pretty healthy number. Now let's look at year-over-year growth, something I know Brian also talked about. By the way, I love that Brian was like, all y'all need to calm down. I know this is super exciting, but you need to calm down and get serious. It's real now. I loved that. I think he's totally right. So thank you, Brian, for that. But if you look at the growth, obviously, for the next couple years, it remains very, very healthy. 41% this year, 56% next year, 31% 2014. And then it starts to level off a little bit. That's fine. That's just a sign of maturation in the ecosystem. It's still pretty healthy year over year, 25, 26, 27, 28%. But it's funny because I feel like this chart kind of makes it look like it's bad. You know, there's a little big line, the big scary line going down. But no, I mean, we're still talking about 28% year-over-year growth by 2017, so very healthy. CPMs, that's a big question, right? This, I think, is pretty cool. When we looked at CPMs for exchange-traded inventory, we put them at around 3-something in 2012 and around 6-something in 2017. And you're probably thinking, wait, I thought you said that the CPM was going to end up in the kind of 4 range by 2017. Indeed, for display overall. But interestingly, Forrester is actually putting the exchange-traded CPMs higher than the overall display market. Yay for us. That's great news, right? And that's for a couple reasons. First and foremost, it still only represents a subset of the overall display market. And frankly, there's still an awful lot of junk out there being bought and sold for very, very low CPMs, which has an impact on overall prices. But secondly, and I think probably more optimistically and excitingly for the folks in this room, is that we really do believe that brand marketers are going to start paying attention. They're going to start, even more than they are now, like Bob Arnold from Kellogg's aside. We need everybody to move into this space, and we do think that that's going to start to happen. You're going to see brand advertisers really getting into this space. And when you look at the interest in audience targeting, and by the way, it's something I talk to marketers about every single day, That creates interesting competition for impressions. That creates interesting competition for audiences. That means demand. That means prices go up. So those are all really good things. Right, there they are. 317 to 664, those are the actual numbers. So instead of tweeting 6 something, you can tweet 664. Okay, so European online display spending overall. Ooh, by the way, I forgot. This is inclusive of video. Just like with our overall display forecast, this is inclusive of RTB and exchange-traded video. Forrester did a commission study for SpotX not too long ago where we actually looked at the video spend, and the numbers were quite exciting, certainly for those guys. So it's a subset, certainly, of the overall RTB market, but it does include video. What's not included is mobile RTB, which frankly is still pretty small, just like mobile overall is small. And what's not included is FBX. And that's interesting, right? I mean, that is just huge. I've had marketers say to me, you know, we doubled our spend, we tripled our spend the second we got access to FBX. So that is not in here. And finally, can I just say finally? Thank you, Facebook. OK, so European online display. I'm actually not going to talk as much about this one because, frankly, we just don't have as much stuff around the European market as I would like. I'd really like to be able to tell you what we think is going to happen with RTB and exchange-traded inventory in Western Europe, but I don't have those numbers. Plus, we had these guys talking about it. Frankly, I think they probably did a better job. I'm excited for Forrester to start looking at this stuff. I think that the opportunity outside of the US is absolutely massive. As a person who's very, very bullish about programmatic buying, I'm certainly in support of the expansion into global markets. I just don't have the numbers to share with you. Although if you look at like what P&G is doing with their Hawkeye initiative, that's incredibly exciting when you have an advertiser like that making a very, very big bet on audience-oriented global buying using programmatic tools. But some numbers. We have our 2012 number around 4.7 billion euros. It's a little bit lower than what those guys had. I can't tell you why. I mean, they're probably just more bullish about the European market because they're there, and that's great. We're slightly less bullish. The CAGR is also a little bit lower than it is in the US for various reasons. For a while, it was growing at this massive clip, and then you saw a big dip around 2009 or so, and then it started to rise again, but it's just a little bit slower. You know, certainly when you look at markets like the UK, particularly with programmatic, things are very, very exciting, and I was excited to hear about what's happening, obviously, from our German friend as well. Where are the numbers? There they are. So again, just like with the US market, the thing that I'm excited about is looking at the numbers around video and around what we call rich display, really anything that's not static. That's where you see the biggest numbers, and that's wonderful. We had this stat in the paper around video acceptance, and it was something like 75% of publishers in the Western Europe are now accepting video ad formats, and there's a lot of bullishness around video, and I'm excited about that. Because really, honestly, again, that's where the brand dollars are. If you look at TV right now, what did I say it was now? 77 billion, something like that, right? So we need to all be paying attention to what happens with video, regardless of where we are. Okay, so what does all of this stuff mean? And again, I'm sorry I was a little clunkier than I normally am with all of these numbers. But this is where I get to talk about the stuff that I think what it all means and what is so exciting about it. I really think that we were right when we made the guess that the future was really about programmatic and about custom. Oh, and incidentally, when I was showing you all those numbers for things like exchange, I was talking about what I said, exchange. Programmatic could be much bigger, right? And so sometimes when I show these numbers to people, they say, oh, but 30%, that seems low. And I say, fair, but we're just talking about what I think ultimately is a subset of the overall programmatic market. I think there's so much opportunity for automation in this ecosystem that I think ultimately, when we get to the point where we really define programmatic, that number may be much bigger. So back to programmatic and custom. When you look at the growth of programmatic and you look at the growth of video and you look at the excitement around things like native ads, I think that we're right when we say that the world becomes bifurcated between custom, brand-heavy, rich experiences and programmatic. And I think programmatic is not just for direct response. I think it's for brand as well. You guys have probably seen me put this one up before. This is from the Future of Digital Media Buying that we wrote maybe a year ago and then just re-released. But the reason I wanted to show it to you guys is because I think what's happening is it's coming true, which is very exciting. I hear it on the ground when I talk to folks about how they're orienting their teams. You know, the folks that are focused on performance. Even if that includes brand spend, they're calling it performance, which I don't love. But you know, it's this idea that it's data-driven programmatic, and the more custom, rich, manual stuff. And I think you see it in this spend too. So I was excited to be able to tie it back to something that we believed was going to happen, and it's really seeming to come true. And so ultimately, what does all of this mean, I think, for the long term? I think that, again, what seems to be coming true is that we're going to have a world that is very much centered around audiences, centered around users. So it's audience-centric. Programmatic certainly supports that. It's totally data-driven. Did you guys see that Nate Silver got like 50 out of 50 right, by the way? It's freaking amazing. I love it. I was so excited about all the tweets about data nerds and data wonks and the power of data last night during the election. Yay for that, because I think in this ecosystem, we are embracing that wholeheartedly. And then finally, the world becomes totally channel agnostic, because that's how consumers behave, right? So just two quick quotes, and then I'm done. I know I'm over time. One is from Kurt Heck. Did you guys see this? It was in that Digiday piece. I like this. He said, programmatic will reinvent the way media is bought and sold and will impact both native and standard ad formats. There's room for native when it's a highly unique customer experience. I read this to mean we as a publisher are embracing both custom native and programmatic wholeheartedly. Both of those things are what our business are going to be about in the future. And then just to remind everybody why we're doing everything that we do every day, it's about consumers. It's about getting consumers excited about our products, about our services. And everything we do every day should be oriented toward what the consumer wants, how the consumer behaves. And I think Colette really put it beautifully when she said on this panel where I saw her not too long ago, she's at Guthy-Renker, consumer behavior has changed and we're behind the curve. So I know we get all excited about multiples, we get all excited about year-over-year growth in programmatic, we get all excited about the next data vendor, but ultimately what we really need to be excited about is how all of these tools are supporting better communication with consumers, or frankly, we're dead as brands. The end. Do you guys have questions? Oh, I can see you now. Do you guys have questions? Line up. By the way, I think I was supposed to kind of move around the stage, so I'm just going to do a little bit of that now.
Nice dance, nice dance.
Thanks.
Hi, Joanna. Brandon Atkinson from AppNexus. I'm
Hi.
wondering, you didn't mention much about mobile, except for not mentioning much about mobile. How do you see mobile playing out in exchange?
Mobile bums me out big time. It seems like we all know that we need to be doing it, obviously. This is where consumers are spending all their time, and Mary Meeker keeps reminding us that this is not where we're spending our money, and she's right. But I think a big part of the problem is that the mobile ad experience sucks.
Yeah.
Right. It sucks. It sucks. And so actually we have a paper coming out about multi-channel buying, and basically what we say in the paper is the mobile ad experience sucks. So if you're going to do it, you have to do it in a very thoughtful way. Programmatic or not, you know? So yes, am I excited about bringing programmatic techniques to mobile? For sure. Am I excited about being able to enable better communication across channels? For sure. Am I excited about a teeny banner on my iPhone? No. So really think about that when you're thinking about your mobile strategy.
But to follow up, as more users move to mobile as opposed to traditional desktop, is that, and given that challenge you mentioned, is that good news or bad news for the folks in this room?
Good news or bad news for the folks in this room? Well, how about this? There's so much opportunity to get better. We can't possibly get worse, right? So what I'd like to see is better ad experiences, right? And yes, let's continue to think about targeting, and let's continue to think about measurement. Those are massive problems in mobile. But let's also just think about how people want to experience advertising on mobile first and foremost.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You have to stand up or they're going to yell at me. And actually, you have to go to the microphone or they're going to yell at me. Because apparently a bunch of people are watching some sort of simulcast of this.
But if I stand up, then Brian will make fun of me for being the other tall guy in the room.
You are incredibly tall.
And ugly, but thanks for not mentioning that latter part.
That's all on you, buddy.
Yep. I'm Tolman Jeffs with JGI, and this is
Hi,
a
Tolman.
very small and low microphone. Let me come down here. Small question, not worth the walk down, but why exclude Facebook from your overall stats and display, and what would your $3 to $6 price projection look like if FBX was included?
Oh, geez. I mean, Facebook prices are pretty low, right? I mean, one of the things that I feel like I hear from marketers, and I haven't looked at it that closely yet, but one of the things I do hear from marketers, which I'm not super excited about, is, oh, it's just so cheap. You know, and I'm like, okay, yeah. It's also kind of a not awesome ad experience, so I suppose it kind of deserves to be cheaper. And there's just so much of it. There's so much of it. But a lot of it's going to be retargeted, right? So that obviously has an impact on the CPMs that are charged. I have no good answer on why we don't include it, except that it didn't exist when we started the forecast. You know, actually, it didn't exist when we finished the forecast. I think we finished it in like May or June, you know, the actual data. Yep. And when did it come out of beta? Like 2-3 months ago?
20 minutes ago.
Yeah, like 20 minutes ago, right? So it's not in here. We look at social separately. I think it's something that we're thinking a lot about, this question of paid, earned, owned, how we think about these things. Feels a little bit arbitrary how it's divided up right now, but.
All right, Joan, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Going once. Brian's standing in the wings. Looks like he's trying to physically kick me off the stage.
Actually kick
You were like
off
this.
the stage.
You were like.
All right, everyone, thank you. You can go now.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Awesome job. Well done. I just don't want Tolman to ask any more questions.